Welcome to Fast Friends, the podcast that centers on high performance storytelling with high performance athletes and individuals whose norm is to live at the very top 0.01%, whether it's competition, coaching, business, or life. We dive into their stories, how they got there, the journey, and life on the other side. I'm your host, Dan Walsh, and I'm joined by my co host, Justin Faber. Justin and I were rowing teammates in college and later on the U.S. national team. Though we went on separate journeys, since then we've come together to bring these stories to life and share perspectives with our audience as well as our guests. Welcome everybody back to Fast Friends. Today's guest is one of the most accomplished scullers the U.S. has ever seen. She is an incredible coach. She's an incredible activist. She is a dear friend of mine from one that she lived with my roommate at the time, Matt Smith, one of our previous guests, and then went on to marry him, but also was there when I met my wife and married her. So we had this really awesome Green Street apartment where young summer love was becoming these nice and fun relationships. Um, Everywhere she goes, she brings success. And she has an incredible story of not just one, but two Olympic journeys and what it took to make them. Hillary, thank you so much for coming on Fast Friends. It's an inspiration to have you on and be able to learn your story. And it's really good to catch up and learn to see what you're up to. So thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is exciting, and I'm excited to chat with you guys. And again, thanks for having me.
Well, just to make sure, we like to remind everybody why they're here. Justin, can you please let the audience know what kind of incredible person we have with us?
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, thank you, Hillary, for joining us. So yeah, just to give everybody a background on Hillary Gehman. So first of all, Hillary's rowing journey is pretty legendary, and we're going to talk about that, and we'll kind of unpack that over the episode. But started with a really late entry into the sport, unlike some of our other guests. But once she caught the bug, I think it was more like an embedded bug versus just a sting. And she basically went from a club rower at Colby to the big show of the 2000 and 2004 Olympic Games. Represented Team USA as a six-time member of the U.S. national team. Competed in the quad for women's quadruple sculls at both Olympics, finishing fifth in both appearances. But that was just kind of the start of her rowing journey. If that's not enough, also super powerhouse coach. On the other side of it, obviously making her mark as a competitor, she went on to lead the next generation of rowers at Georgetown, at Cornell, and then with U.S. Rowing, earning multiple Coach of the Year titles, developing future Olympians in the process. She coached the 2015 Pan Am Games, 2018 World Championships, and was most recently the U.S. women's quad coach for the 2020 Tokyo Games. So super impressive. But then, after 25 years of shaping athletes on off the water, making a huge pivot in a really awesome way into the nonprofit world, where she's joining Share My Meals to tackle food waste and insecurity in Princeton, New Jersey. So from Olympian to coach to community leader, Hillary is certainly a force. So welcome to the show. We're certainly in for a treat today. We're excited to have you on, and yeah, we can't wait to jump in and hear about all these little. They're not so little. All these stops along the journey. So yeah, welcome.
Thank you, thank you.
No worries.
All
So I'll
right.
flip back to Dan. We'll jump right in.
So Hillary, I mean that background alone is so badass. But you know, what was your call to this adventure we call rowing and this call to adventure to the Olympics? Like what was the beginning?
Well, I think the beginning for me was really just the love of athletics, the love of sports. I did not row until college, until my spring season of my freshman year. So I would say the love of rowing really stemmed from just a love of athletics. And I played a bunch of different sports, as I know some of your other guests have said that rowing was not the only sport. And so I think when I got to college and joined the club team at Colby, it was really because I needed to play sports, and I played field hockey my freshman year fall, and wasn't so good with the hand-eye coordination. But so I joined the rowing team, as many people do, because my friends were doing it. And, so I would say the athletics was was the spark for me. And rowing, excuse me, ignited sort of a passion. And that passion did not really manifest until well after college, in terms of, the national team and Olympic team journey. But the love of being active and being on a team, and that really started at a pretty young age for me. So rode for club team all 4 years. Looking back, my dad and my grandfather both went to Princeton, and I had a little mini dream of going to Princeton. And I looked at the application, in December of my junior year, and when it was due a few weeks later, and it was like, nope, this is not my path. But, looking back, if I had pursued a Division I or a Princeton type collegiate journey, I really don't think I would have gone down a rowing path, because I was very intimidated by a Division I endeavor. I didn't have the mindset to be a Division I athlete. I just wanted to be active. I wanted to be athletic. And so I think for me personally, everybody's journey is different. But for me personally, the club atmosphere at Colby really, really worked for me. It allowed me to develop that sort of love of the sport without the intense pressure and competitive nature of a Division I environment. And having coached, at the Division I level, and having coached at the national team and Olympic level, clearly you cannot do that with a club mentality. I fully recognize you need to be a little more serious. But I really look back at my club rowing Colby experience as a very transformative time for me and my love of rowing. I think I really did enjoy it a lot, and not for the competitive aspect, but for the team, and I loved being on the water, but and I was competitive, but competitive and also lazy.
So paint us the picture, right? Like, was it like walking through the student union and like someone approached you and was like, "Hey, come join our cult," or
No.
like
No.
paint
Do you
us
know,
paint us the picture.
have you seen me? Do you know how tall I am? Nobody has ever knocked on my door asking me to join rowing. I'm barely 5'7" and not a lightweight. So that's not really, nobody was saying, "Hey, come join our sport." Like I said, I played field hockey in the fall, sort of walked on, tried out, whatever, made the JV team. And then, I had friends, honestly, who had started rowing in the fall, or I had a few friends who had friends rowed in the fall, and they were joining in the spring. And I was like, sure, that sounds like fun. I'll do that too. It literally was just like, hey, why don't you come down, try out, try this thing out. And I did. And I remember, it was very much a club atmosphere. I mean, my sophomore year, we were coached by an injured rower on the team. So we didn't have a coach. So it wasn't like anything, there wasn't a intense tryout process or anything like that. It was just try this new thing and see how it goes. And that's exactly what I did. And it definitely got its hooks into me. The rowing hooks were fully entrenched in my body.
There's the claws again.
Yeah, the claws. They just they grab you and they don't let go. But I remember being I mean, we were rowing co-ed. I mean, we had a men's team and a women's team, but we all trained together. And my very first time in a boat, I distinctly remember, this is spring when, there weren't that many true novices in the spring. And I'm in a boat, I'm rowing along with these, men and women and people who knew what they were doing. And the coxswain keeps yelling, keep the set, keep the set. And I'm like, what the hell is the set? What are you talking about? All this lingo, and I didn't know what was going on. And honestly, I have no idea why I kept coming back, because I didn't,
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on, but I did come back because the people, it was the people. And it was in Maine. I went to school in Maine,
Yeah.
and this is like,
Was it like a 3-week spring season before like the school year was ended?
Right. I mean, we were wading into the water with ice chunks on the lake and toweling off with it. We would pass the towel down the boat and, dry off our feet before we put our socks on. I mean, it was, April in Maine was cold. So,
But that's like, that is something amazing. And I do want to take a step back, because one, like, I agree with you about the club mentality, is that yes, obviously there has to be a different intensity, but those clubs, especially when they're student run and it is a sport as grueling as rowing is, you're still showing up every day. And your friends, like, were able to convince you, and there was something about that self-sufficiency it was on you to make sure this thing kept going, and you were that self-improvement. So like, my backup question is, like, just in high school, you talk about your love for athletics and team. Like, what was your first experience with that? Like, what kind of made you realize that team sports, or at least sports, was your window to becoming a different version of yourself?
well, honestly, I don't know that I ever had that aha moment in. Well, looking back, I played field hockey, I was a Nordic skier, and I ran track. And
Okay.
of all three of those, and I mean, when I was, much younger, I did like little league baseball and gymnastics and, things like that. But I thought my sport was going to be Nordic skiing. That was in high school. That was sort of the sport that I had the most, success. And looking back, I was decent, but nowhere. And that's not even a team sport, but there is a team aspect, because obviously there are other skiers on the team, and you combine points for, how well you're going to do as a team. But I think it was the three. I mean, I was always playing a sport. I was always part of a team, and always, training for something, and other people were training for something. It was just kind of my identity, I guess. In high school, I got most athletic in my senior year. It was kind of my identity as, um, I wasn't super artistic or creative or musical or anything like that. I was an athlete, and that was something that it wasn't just my identity. I also truly enjoyed it. So when I got to college, it was sort of just a natural, like, I'm going to do something athletic. And in terms of when the switch or whatever, that I could take that athletic identity and actually become really good at it, that took years. I mean, years. I didn't, as was noted, I didn't take the natural path from college to national team. There was a solid 5 to 6 years after graduating from college before. I mean, my first national team was '99, which is 6 years after I graduated from college. So I would say it. I mean, there was a huge just gap in the the athletic college Hillary and the national team Olympic Hillary. I would say I lived a lot of life in those 6 years.
That's so cool.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I don't know you as well as the other guys. Just simply, there's a really big juxtaposition between what you're talking about at Colby and being a two-time Olympian at its peak, right? And then obviously the career you've had after that. Like, what happened in those 6 years? Take us a little bit into those, because I
Yeah.
guess like you talk about a very, I mean, as an observer, super casual rowing atmosphere. We were all Division 1 rowers. We're in that intense pressure, of at least like the Division 1 programs of, hey, it's structured and you're going to go to the Eastern Sprints, you're
Yep.
going to go to the IRA and whatever. Right. It's a bit more casual what you're describing, with the ice
Yep.
chunks in the towel in the boat, and co-ed, and the injured coach who was a rower, was
Right.
probably like, yeah, if you guys want to row on the erg after, it's cool, whatever. Like, feels at least that vibey. Yeah, talk to us about the 6 year
Yeah.
transition.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think really what what it really comes down to is I was pretty immature.
Okay.
And I didn't have a lot of athletic maturity until well after college.
Okay.
So I think just my athletic maturity, my ability to take things really truly seriously did not develop until well after college. I was just
Yeah.
that was my path. That was like my trajectory was just casual athletics, I guess. I enjoyed it. I did it. I was competitive, but I wasn't super serious.
Hmm.
So, after college, I'll just give you the quick. It is difficult, honestly, for me to, talk to other people about it because it's like you rode club, in college and then you went to the Olympics. How did that, and 6 years later, it
Yeah.
doesn't really add up. And I sort of get that.
Yeah.
But that's what makes it
why
so
we- yeah,
cool.
that's why we
Like,
want
that's
you
what
to
makes it
tell
so
us.
cool,
So-
right? Like that.
So I think
Because
Bring us
like,
over that
we, like-
bridge.
yeah.
Well, that's because
Yeah,
I think
the
it's
best way to go ahead.
Steve's been talking to me all day. He's like,
let
"Oh, I
me
gotta
let me
listen to
go.
him."
Let me go. Let me go.
Yeah.
Let me
Go.
So I
Get
guess
it, baby.
the best way to think about it, Hillary, right, is in all great adventure stories, it's called crossing the threshold. And at some point, you switch from that casual to like you have your first taste of the adventure.
Yeah.
And so somewhere what we're sensing, what you're dancing around, is somewhere in those 6 years you had that first taste where it
Yep.
just like got in there and you were like, all right, let's go.
Right. So I'll give you the fast forward what that moment was
Yeah,
for me,
sure.
which was the 1996 Olympics in Atlanta,
Okay.
where
Okay.
I went and watched and literally watched every single rowing event, every single day of rowing. I was there, whatever, 6 days straight. That was it for me. But I'll back up and I'll
Yeah.
give you a little bit of graduate from college. I biked cross country with my friend Neve, and we biked from Lincolnville, Maine to 30 miles west of Tuba City, Arizona, where we crashed into each other and I had to get stitches, and that was the end of our trip. But we biked cross
I mean,
country.
you made it that far. I mean,
We made it,
That's pretty good.
So anyway, that's what we did right after college, and then I moved to Portland, Oregon, where my friend Neve was from, and I didn't know what to do. I literally had the clothes that I had biked across the country in, and that's it. And I became a nanny, a live-in nanny, and that was my job for the next year. I was taking care of two kids in Portland. Then I went to South America and did what was supposed to be a 3 week trip. Ended up being 6 weeks. Called up my family and said, "I'm not returning to be your nanny." And they said, "You don't expect to have a job when you return," which was fine. I did not expect that. So, so then I transitioned to returning after my 6 week trip to South America, to no job. My bank account had been closed because the checks that I had written had bounced. It was like a whole debacle. I had literally nothing. So then I became a dishwasher at Seafood Mama restaurant and waited tables. And that
just like
was,
Bruce Lee.
yeah,
Back in Portland.
back in Portland. Yep.
Okay.
And so then at the end of that year is when I started rowing again. I joined a local club in Portland. I was like, I gotta get something going on here in my life. And so I was like, I liked rowing in college. Let me try rowing again. So I joined Station L Rowing Club and just I was I was like a master's rower and I was living the dream. And a fun fact, actually, the Nike World Master Games, which I can show you a medal from the Nike World Master Games up here.
Don't-
My-
One of the many
big
medals
ones.
hanging over her
Yeah,
shoulder.
those big ones there. Those are from those were the first medals I ever won as a rower at the, as a Nike as a World Masters champion in Portland, Oregon, and that was back in 90 something 3 or 4 or 5, I don't know. Anyway,
And now you're not allowed to enter those still. You're probably still not allowed to enter
no,
those
probably
ones.
not. Probably not. Anyway, so I joined this local rowing club, and one of the rowers in the club was Jen Devine, and Jen Devine was training it with the national team, and she was going to world championships, and she went to the Olympics in '96 in Atlanta, and a bunch of us from the club, we're so proud of her and, hometown hero and all of that. And there were like 13 of us who made the trek to Atlanta to watch. And that's fast forward kind of to where I was like, rowing is really awesome. Like I was inspired by the Olympics. I was super inspired. And I was not inspired to the point of I'm going to row in the Olympics one day. It was more just rowing is cool. And I want to row, I want to train harder. I want to just do more rowing because it's a really cool sport. So that was really the sort of the turning point in just my thought process about the sport. So come home from that and I got in touch with Jen and was like, hey, would you be willing? Because she was also not super tall or big. She about my size, maybe she's a little bit taller. So I was like, well, wow, she can do it. And she's not that, behemothly tall. And I'm definitely short. So I wrote to her, I contacted her somehow and I said, hey, would you be willing to write a training plan for me? And she's like, absolutely. And she coaxed me through my very first 6K ever. And yeah, and so from there, I just started training and I was like, what do I do to get into this? I had no idea what to do. So I went to, she's like, well, there's some ID camps. They used to have ID camps. There was one at University of Washington.
Yep.
So I went up to that and the coach at Station L, Pete Edwards, he went with me and he's like, you got to wear the thickest soled sneakers that you own because you're really short and you gotta try to look taller. And
Was he the inventor of Haka?
I mean, he should have been, but yeah. So, I mean, I literally for a solid 5 years thought I was 5'9". I told people I was 5'9". I believed I was 5'9", not even close to 5'9". But anyway, so that's kind of, it was sort of a bit of it seems fast because I did row in the 2000 Olympics, but it was a bit of a slow journey. Just, I had to buy a boat and I had to learn how to scull and all of that kind of stuff happened. But at the time I was a sweep rower, I was a sweep rower. I rowed sweep in college and I was a sweep rower. And so, one of the ID camps that I went to in Chula was me and like 6 or 7 lightweight women scullers. And I was like, where are all the open weights at? Like, where are the sweep rowers at? And it was like, well, you're just, you gotta, there are none. And it was me and Tori Folk, actually. Tori Folk was there. And then, yeah. And then, so that's where I sculled a little bit. And Hartmut was like, girlfriend, you gotta, oh, he didn't call me girlfriend, he's lady. Lady, you have to learn how to scull. You have to get fit, and just he kind of like brushed me away. He was like, I don't really have time for you. And I was like, well, I want to do this. And um, he gave me this training plan that was essentially I mean, the bulk of the training plan was 2 hours a day of rowing, of erging. Um, Sometimes twice, like two by 1 hour in the morning, 2 by 1 hour in the afternoon. Sometimes there'd be like some minute on, minute off stuff, but he's like, you just need fitness. And the reason he said that is because we at one of the Chula camps there was a heart rate test, and I have a really high heart rate, and it was heart rate 145 for 6K. It was 2 by 6K, and the first 6K was heart rate 145, which is, I mean, I can think about eating ice cream and my heart rate will be 145. It's just, it
Hey,
was like,
I'm with you.
it was so depressing for me. I'm not even going to tell you my splits, but because I remember them. But I was like 145 and I was like, okay, just calm your brain. Don't think about anything exciting at all. And so then the second 6K, we got to go to 164 to 168 heart rate. And I remember looking around the room and people were like red in the face and like really working at 164 to 168. And I was like, okay, this is kind of like close to steady state for me. And after that is when he's like, oh, what are you doing here? Like, you have no business being here. And that's when he gave me the, 2 by 60 minutes, which I did.
The common thread
Anyway,
here.
Yeah,
He
Yeah.
did this to Beery,
well,
too.
Yeah,
it's
so, yeah.
kind of because Beery said the same thing, right? He gave
Yeah.
Beery the same training program, like
Yeah.
ride the and there's two funny things just to relive that is one is I hear this awesome story about Hartmut and Igor are at the training center in Colorado Springs talking to a strength coach. His name's Eric Lawson, and he's still there. He's still training athletes, and it was his first introduction to rowing. And he goes, he's talking to these two guys, and they're like, "Yeah, we love the Americans because they do all the work. We would write these training programs because the Eastern Europeans or the West Germans wouldn't do all that work, you know." And so
yeah,
you were the guinea pig for those guys to say, "Oh, they will do 4 hours. Let's see what happens with this."
Yeah.
right,
So you would
right.
you are just it's like another amazing thing of to just pause for a second and just really appreciate you were inspired by the 96 Olympics, which is very cool because that was mine too, right? That was my so I feel you on that a lot, like especially because it was a US games,
Mhm.
you know, and so cool that we have the next games is US. So it's like what a cool trajectory. And I just kind of like ground it in that your you went from like rowing's into it. I'm figuring out my life. Rowing's going to center my life to, yeah, I want to be the one of the best at it. And I think that curiosity and that does that like to me, it's just if you can before going too deep into Hartmut getting you fitter. Akil talked about the delusion, right? You almost have to have this delusion that you can do it before you even attempt to. So you're inspired, you get given this like workout that still to this day would crush anybody, and you just do it. Like what? Like can you is there like a like what said, "Yeah, let's go after this, Hillary. We can do this."
Well, I mean, part of it is, if somebody gives me a challenge, I'm probably going to try to do it. So on some level, it's that, it's just driven from this is what somebody, a coach, obviously very well respected national team coach told me to do. I didn't think that Hartmut's 2 by 60-minute training plan was going to get me to the Olympics. I thought that it was going to get me fitter, which would get me like an invitation to train with the national team. That never happened from Hartmut. And it quite frankly never happened with Igor either. I because it became pretty clear I was not a sweep candidate for Hartmut. And so Hartmut basically told me, if you want to do anything with rowing, you need to scull. Like you need to learn how to scull, you need to get good at sculling, and you need to drop your erg score. Okay, I'm getting off track, which is such a common theme for me.
It's
No,
no,
you're
it's
fine.
it's
You're
cool.
fine.
It's
I'm
no,
like,
it's
I'm like
totally on
focus on the
track.
question.
It's totally on track because it is amazing, like that level of inspiration and aspiration that is inside of you is incredible, right? To like, because you haven't had the exposure until you
Right.
decided to make that spectator part of you become the thing. And to me, that's just really intriguing, both as an athlete but also a coach. Is like, yeah, I just, how can you ignite more of that spark in people? Like you have it naturally, and that's the, and it's
Yeah.
just it's very cool to see. Like, no, I want to be the thing. I want to be the thing, and I'm gonna
Yeah.
do whatever it takes to be the thing.
But did you want to be the hold on,
I
Dan.
don't think I
I just
did.
wanted to be the thing. So like, I don't want to put words in your mouth. So I just want to clarify. I
Right.
I feel like listening to your talk track, um, which I think is like really fascinating and pretty inspiring. I think to your point that you made earlier about like you weren't in a rigid system, and I feel like you had a lot of free form of like just call to adventure and just like, hey, I'm pretty free. I mean, let's be honest, like it was a bit of a free spirited time, right? For you, you're going on a cross country bike ride, you're going to South America, you're just like, I'll take a job as a nanny, I'll work in a dishwasher, I'll work in a restaurant, I'll just whatever I got to do to almost, I mean, just do whatever you want to do, right? Like there
Yeah.
wasn't a lot of responsibility, it seems, which is cool.
Yep.
So I guess my question to back into it another way is, was it just like, hey, this is another expedition, I'm gonna just check out and see what happens, versus like being the thing, right? Or again,
Right.
to your point, you're like, I'm just hoping to get an invite, we'll see what happens.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it definitely was more of like, let's
Play
see,
this out. Yeah.
let's play this out. Let's see what, can I get faster? Can I get an invitation to train somewhere? Can I 100%, I guess, agree with what you're assuming I'm trying to say, which is I never thought I'm going to go to the Olympics.
Mhm.
That is my goal. That's my end goal. Even when I, so, I wasn't invited to train with the scholars in Augusta, Georgia. I essentially asked if I could go, to which Igor Grinko replied, yes, I think only people with potential should come." Basically trying to tell me
Yeah.
no, but he was never really great at saying like no. He would find a story or some way to say no, which I took his saying, only people with potential, and I was just like, great, I'll be there, I'll be there in I'll be there because I think I have potential. So, I just showed up honestly, and in Augusta. So, my once I decided to move to Augusta, Georgia from Portland, Oregon, I decided I'm going to play this out. I'm just going to play this out to see where it goes through 2000, through the year 2000. So this was in 98, 2 years. Like, are you kidding me? To have, like, I was more just like, let's see how far I can get in 2 years.
Yep.
It was never, let's see. My goal is to go to the Olympics. I never said that. It was just, let's see how this plays out. And, obviously the farther along that line I went, then yes, at some point the goal was to make it to the Olympics, but it wasn't the original goal. It was, let's see how far I can go. Um, and I think because I had sort of had a little bit more of that free form, sort of, as you said, Justin, like go on a bike trip, go to South America, study abroad, all of those things.
Yep.
I was like, sure, I'll move to Augusta. It was just sort of
Sure.
like a
Why
thing
not? Mhm.
that I did. And it wasn't, forever. But so anyway, yeah, I was kind of already had a little bit of that mentality to just, buy a car, buy a boat, take a loan, drive cross country and do something new and different, which a lot of people who have the drive to say I want to be an Olympian have those qualities as well. It's just the qualities in me were I didn't have enough of the um I had no knowledge about what was required to be an Olympian at the time. It was more just uh my ability to be adaptable, I guess, when I was at, that age.
Mhm.
Um
This is fascinating to me. Like when I think about it and the way you're describing it and all of these stories, would you say that you have a greater ability than most to just be present? Like so much of us try so hard to be present in our lives. And all of these stories are about here's what I'm doing now. Here's what I'm going to do now. And the focus is on the here and now to get as far as tomorrow, to get to the next week, to get to the next year. And so like you said 98 to 2000, that's 2 full years. And like the rest of us here, I mean, for me, it was like, well, yeah, I was already thinking in 4-year cycles before I even started my 4-year cycle trying to make the Olympic team. And you're like, whoa, 2 years. Like, but you have this ability to say, well, what's very interesting is like, okay, there's a challenge. I want to take it, right? Like the cross country trip's a challenge, traveling and staying in South America, moving to Portland with nothing and starting being all these things are challenges. And then
Being
it's
an ant is a
coupled
challenge.
and it's and it's
Thank you.
coupled with this sort of like like your ability to be present in what is needed in the here and now to move yourself forward. So do you feel you have a greater ability to just be present and to be in the moment and be there and not be somewhere else thinking about some other time or the goal or the end?
That's a good question. I would not self-analyze myself that way, because the decisions that I have made that seem like really, like a snap of the fingers are not always that way. I don't necessarily make I looking back, it seems like I did all these things off, by the flying by the seat of my pants. As I've gotten older, those decisions are harder. I mean, case in point, the change in jobs that I currently have gone through was a really difficult decision. But I don't know. I guess it's more that I've never really been afraid to make a change, or I've never been, the change itself has not been the cause of any fear or anxiety. It's or the change for the sake of change doesn't really scare me. It's just, is this the right decision or wrong decision? As I've gotten older, there's just more, it seems like there's more consequences to my decisions with regard to, the children and the husband and the house and all the things that, like,
Yeah.
if I really mess up, it's like I'm kind of messing other things up too. But when you're a little younger, it's like there's just less at stake with that. So I think some of it was youth, or
Mhm.
just perceived youth. But I do have the ability to just sort of say, okay, this is a this is what I'm doing, and
Yeah.
and then to fully kind of commit to that. And I've always said that, to myself and to others, that the hardest part, and this is nothing new, but the hardest part is making the decision to do something. Once the decision is made, it's like you just do it. You don't have to really worry or overthink it. It's just, you just do it. But the decision making, it's like, do I want to work out? Well, like, do I want to sleep? Do I want to work out? Do I want to sleep? Do I want to work out? And if you're like, okay, if you're gonna work out, then you just get up and that's what the plan is. And so sometimes it's just, making the decision. I talked to many rowers, well, not many, but some rowers when I was coaching, who were like, I want to quit the team, or I don't know if I want to quit the team, or, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, just don't quit the team. You just do it. Or deciding where to go to college. It's like, there's these decisions that are so hard, but once you make the decision, you're all in. So that's kind of how I've been is I'm all in, and I'm not really like afraid to be all in.
That's a really important distinction, right? Not being afraid to be all in. That's wow, what a great cap to that explanation is like I'm all in and I'm not afraid to be all in. That's
and
it's a
some
more
of it,
vulnerable place than most people want to go.
yeah, and when I was when in that sort of 98 to 2000 era, I didn't have the expectation of myself really to make the Olympic team. So being all in for me at that time was all in for the effort level, all in for the work that everybody was doing, and to just kind of all into seeing how far I could go, how far I could push myself, and how fast I could be, and all of that kind of stuff. It wasn't all into because there's so many things that go into making an Olympic team that are on some level a little bit out of your control. I mean, even a trials boat, you think, okay, if you're going to go for a team and you want everything to be in your control, you go for a trials boat. But even, there's factors out of your control in all scenarios. So on some level, you just really have to just go all in with what you can control. And I mean, I think to some of the people I trained with who didn't make it, who trained just as hard, if not harder, and they didn't make it for a variety of reasons. But that line that between making it and not making it is so blurred sometimes, especially with team boats where a coach is making a selection. Um, that if you get caught up in I have one singular goal and it is to make the Olympic team, or I have one singular goal and it is to win a gold medal, I think it's not going to be quite as enjoyable, and you may not even get the most out of yourself and enjoy that process. And I always, well, always is, I don't want to say always, but for the most part, I enjoyed the process. I really enjoyed the process. And yeah, I think some of my teammates really didn't enjoy the process and just enjoyed the racing, and that was it, gold medal or bust. And that was not me. That would not have worked for me, because I wouldn't, if I don't enjoy what I'm doing, why do it? I mean, that's kind of the way I try to live. And I
So
enjoyed it.
so Hillary, like, in this, if I
Thank you for that,
if
Hillary.
answering the
Thank you.
question, yes, um, if answering the question that I'm going to propose glosses over Sydney, forgive me, but I'm curious, right? Like, I have this image of, there's two things. There's the training montage, and I can see you kind of just like the Rocky music playing and you going into like the training montage, right? And then there's also this notion of, at some point, you're like, I go from potential to I deserve to be here, and I am the one who others should be comparing to. And so I'm curious, like, did you feel like you belonged, and then you went into the training montage, or like at what point, or did we go into the training montage and then you came out the other end and you were like, you were hard, you were a piece of iron, and you were just like, all right, let's go, right? Like at what point did you feel like, yes, I'm here, and build the boat around me, so to speak? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't want to put word like,
right,
or that aura, not
right. I mean, never build the boat around me, but I would say I guess I have earned a right to be here, and it is legitimate that I am here. I would honestly say that did not happen until probably 2002, and I made the 99, the 2000, 2001 teams, 2002, and the reason for that is I didn't row very well. I didn't, in 99, I made the team or the quad. I'm pretty sure because at that time, not of all time, but at that time in that year, I think I say this and now I'm like, is that really true or am I making this up? I think I may have pulled the fastest erg score of the scullers who were in contention for the quad that year. Not ever, because Jen, Jen Dory was in there, and Laurel, Kelly Salkos, they're beast rowers. But somehow
here's the fun part. You got it. You got it. That's
I got it.
We can make the fish as big as we want. Yeah, you had it. You had the
no one's researching this. Let's just go with
it. If anybody listens, they're like, I don't think that's true. It may not
then
be.
They'll come on and they'll talk shit to you on the show, and it'll be great.
But in that year, that was the year of my erg PR. Honestly, was 99. And I think that is the reason. It was like, okay, well, this 5'7", little girl here can pull hard. So, so I pulled hard, right? I mean, I trained hard, I pulled hard. I didn't get injured, which was another key, factor for training with Igor, because there were some workouts that were injury prone workouts. But I didn't really row that well. And and I got better, but I didn't feel like that was my strength or my skill set. It was more just like, I'll just pull really hard. And that's my skill. That's my go-to. And so when I started to actually feel like I could combine the two, like the pulling hard and the technical, like trying to have a little bit of technical proficiency, that's when I felt like, okay, I can do this. Like I am here for a reason, and I can make this boat and I can make it go fast. And I felt like I belonged in the training environment. So yeah, I would say that was, for me, the turning point was just sort of the technical awareness or proficiency or ability to make technical changes rather than just like, go to my go-to, just pull hard.
I mean, and I think that the two really incredible things is you didn't feel that you had mastered it until 2002, but yet on paper you had mastered it because you had become an Olympian. And I think that what's really cool is, one, you're not like Volpe was like, I didn't think I was good till 05, right? Like, that's after setting a world record. And then statistically, if you look at the Olympics, most Olympic athletes do not have their peak performance until their second Olympics. You could even maybe dissect like Michael Phelps, like in 2004, he won a bunch of medals, but it was 08 that was he. So one, I think it's very cool because that's where we operate on this show, is like that fine bandwidth of, going to the Olympics isn't enough. And in fact, that's almost a taste of like, oh, now I'm really understanding what I'm capable of. So I do want to go back. It's like 2002, you felt like you deserved to be there, but yet you were already there. And I would love to know like that transition, because you're right, it is a short 2 weeks. And Steve, I love the Rocky training montage. It's like the Hillary training montage. And on top of which, you're like, I couldn't row, but I could go hard. Which is intimidating, right? Which is an intimidating person to be competing with in that environment. Can you take us a little bit to like making that 2000 team? As far back as you want or as close as you want, but I would love to see like, where did the pulling hard really start to show for you? And it was like, I think I can make this.
For the Olympics you're talking about?
For 2000, yeah.
So, well, I guess it's probably worth noting that in 2000, the women's quad did have to go through arbitration to make the team. So making the 2000 Olympic team was surrounded by a little bit of drama. I'm saying that a little facetiously because it was kind of a lot. So
anytime you drop arbitration on the Olympics,
yeah. So there's a little bit of that I don't know if I deserve to be here feeling, even though I did make the 2000 team. You know, the 99 and the 2000 quad were the same people. It was Jen, Laurel, Kelly, and me. And, 99 is my first team. Don't really know what's happening. 2000's my second team, which is the Olympic team, but there was arbitration and it was contentious and I was the newbie still, and it I don't really want to I don't really want to get into all of the arbitration stuff, but it was a contentious, and arbitration favored us. We made the team, but it was a weird making of the team. The Olympic team. To make your first
Understood.
Olympic team through arbitration is a little weird. So I didn't have that feeling of I made it. It was like, well, did you? It was, I mean, yes, I did. And I do believe that everything that led to the decision for us to be named the team, the Olympic team, the Olympic quad was justified and right. But I didn't, in my heart of hearts, really feel like I had put everything out there and I had made it. It was a bit of a weird situation for me. So that feeling of like, okay, did I really earn it? Do I really deserve it? Was still sort of lingering for me. Even though I think that the decision was justified, and but it was strange for me.
It, that
Strange for
I mean, I
anybody.
can't. It's going to be super strange, and I, I don't. I totally want to respect. I don't want to get into it either. Like living through different. I personally went through an arbitration stage. I think Steve, you were part of that too. Like so, for historical context, I think it's just I want to paint the picture, and you were there, and I just want to make sure part of this was going into Sydney, what was a 96 from a successful sculling campaign run by Igor. There were now two factions of sculling camps, correct? One in Princeton and one in Augusta. And that was part of it, right? Which is like, instead of it saying like there was a lot of almost too much internal competition from the camps. And that was starting to lead to athletes and coaches getting to that moment of fighting for what was the most fair. And I think just for the audience, we don't have to go into it, but is that pretty much broad strokes where it's like almost the system created this animosity versus the people? Or was it the people created the animosity? Like the competitiveness bled into off the water into the arbitration.
It wasn't really the system so much as, yeah, I mean, it was a combination. I think Igor RIP was had some opinions, and he had sort of a way that he wanted to do things that didn't match the US system. Honestly, it just conflicted. His view of selection was different than the US view of selection, and that those worlds collided. And it did be, and because of the arbitration, and it became a little, it became personnel. Like the rowers were not super happy about what was going on. Wait, are you guys
Thank you.
still there?
Oh yeah.
We are.
Okay, my
We
computer
heard
just,
a little bit, but
oh.
you're good. We just had
You're
a
fine.
quick artifacting.
Okay.
Something pop up on your screen. Is that?
Yeah, apparently I've reached, oh no, it says time limit. Okay, I'm just gonna ignore, but I can't really, can you guys see and hear me?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
We
Oh,
can see and hear
do
you.
you have one of the limits for the boys that you have to override?
Um,
10 o'clock is a favorite
ye-
time
I
to
don't know.
have to override.
Well, I'm just gonna, I don't know, I don't
All right.
know what has
let's
happened.
just
but
carry
here we are.
forward. Let's
Yeah,
just carry
all right.
forward, and
Yep.
if it ends, then I'll learn how to splice things together.
Okay. Well, I have lost my Zoom, but I see that the camera's still on, so it's all good.
All right.
Yeah, so anyway, so 2000 was strange. There was some tension, I guess. Tension is a a way to say it, between the rowers. But honestly, it resolved itself because in 2001, I was in a boat with people who were in the arbitration the year before. So it kind of worked out. We all kind of
Okay.
came together and we made up.
And that was an awesome
we were,
quad in 01. Then you got fourth,
yeah.
correct? Yeah.
We got third, actually. We got third in 01, which is so fun fact for me personally is every single time I've raced in Lucerne, I've gotten third. And most of the thirds are World Cups, but in 2001, the World Championships were in Lucerne. So I have a bronze medal from Lucerne. But yeah, it was a good quad.
And that was was that the best the women's quad had done ever for
To
the
that,
US?
not ever. I should know this. I'm really bad with rowing history, but yeah, I think there was a quad in the 80s that had gotten a
That's
medal.
pretty
At
near a
Worlds.
high water mark.
I mean, it was good. I mean, it was good. It was good. It wasn't the best ever, but and obviously clearly not the best since then, but yeah, it was good, and we were happy. Yeah, we were happy.
Yeah.
And tired. I was tired. I was very tired after that race.
So I mean, so you have come from Colby. You have been inspired. You did the Hartmut training program. You made it through a double gauntlet to get to Sydney, right? Like the arbitration and the physicality of it. Your Sydney experience left you with enough of a taste for your own personal, like, I want to really prove I deserve to be here. Take us into that, because there's two things that I really am interested in going into Athens. Lucky enough to be adjacent to it and be there. But for me, it's really fun because you taught me something really interesting about not only rowing, but rowing at that level. Was because on the way to Athens, you were discovering that your physiology was different. You're the one who kind of taught me about anaerobic rowing, and like, didn't you used to have to do like 1,000 before every race in the morning before like you had to train more individually to make the most out of yourself within a system. And I think that's a really cool maturation of both you, I think both Tom, but to like acknowledge that I need something specific to get a peak performance in this place. And I know I'm asking a triple loaded question, but as a coach and an athlete, tell us a little bit about that, how you discovered to get the most out of yourself going into Athens.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, Tom was really supportive of me as a rower, as a small rower, and, just trying to figure out what works, what didn't work. And I would, for me, tapers were horrible. I didn't enjoy a taper. It made me very nervous, and the lactic acid that would build up in my body in the first 500 meters of a race was just such a shock, and it was so debilitating physically. And I was like, but then when we were doing pieces, and the first piece was always the worst for me, and then the second piece and third, whatever, got progressively better. So I was like, okay, I need that lactic acid to build up. I need to process it. I need to get rid of it, or, not get rid of it, but I need to process it and then be able to perform. Mm-hmm. And so on race day, I didn't do this a lot, but I think it was 1,500. I did a 1,500 before the race on the erg to just get that lactic acid, to just like wake my body up and just say, hey, this is happening, so that I would be ready for it in the actual race. So, I mean, I was really sort of happy that Tom was willing to work with me on that. And again, I didn't do this a lot, but I did it, and I think it worked to the point of getting me kind of ready. And then I think I tapered that back, but it just sort of taught me that I think 1,500 was too much. I maybe did that once, but it taught me that I need more warm up. I need more land warm up. I need more hard strokes. And if everybody else doesn't, need more hard strokes in the water, the warm up on the water, I need to do it myself. And that's something that I kind of brought into my coaching when I was coaching, is just you've got to try new things. You've got to be able to, be dare to take some risks with that, and to know what works for you, because when you're in the boat, you all have to do the same thing. So everybody has to be ready to do the same thing together. And if you have to do something different beforehand, do it. And to practice that before race day. So yeah,
So
I think it was great.
so would you, Hillary, with that said, like, would you say that that was like one of your edges, or was that your edge, just self-awareness? Or I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like if you had to say like my edge, because you've mentioned like the ability to just turn it on, pull really hard, and like, but then also the
Uh,
self-awareness reflect like bit is actually
I th-
very interesting to me. Like I'm,
I
I'm,
think
I'm
my
I've never seen that.
well,
That's super
I
interesting.
think my edge is um well, it's like it's an edge, but it's also a limiting factor. But to go to the well, like I've gone to the well so many times.
Hmm.
It's like I just that's my thing.
Yeah.
I'll go so deep all the time and every time, partly because I kind of had to. I mean, I don't have the luxury of um being, I'll just like really reach out, I'll just get a little longer, whatever. um so going, 100%, 110%, whatever, all the time was sort of my edge.
Hmm.
However, the limitation of that is that I didn't have an extra gear. I never really had an extra gear. And I think um, some people who have a little more just natural genetics, physiology, whatever you want to say, have the ability for that extra gear. And I think I gave 100% all the time, and I just didn't have the ability to go. And I think some people could actually do very, very well at 90. And then when it comes to the Olympic final, they go to 100% and they win the race. So
Hmm.
I didn't really have that. But
Sure.
it helped me in training, it helped me in selection, it helped me in times where it's like I will just pull hard
Hmm.
or
But
harder than you, or
Yeah.
I'll
that's I think a couple of things is that's really cool, and that is one, it was seen, right? Like that's also the the really cool thing about the show is all the stories that are coming in, and the excitement of everybody else like wanting to know more, not like even like people who want to like I'll tell my story, but also, man, I love that, or looking up to each other is like you are known as, I would say, toughness, like that edge. I agree with you. Is like nobody went harder than Hillary, and I think also from a coaching standpoint was, well, because you had to, because you weren't the 6 foot, So I think it's amazing because we found out your inspiration. We found out you're, to Luke's point, like you're present. And I think that kind of goes to go to the well, you have to be really present because you have to just
Hmm.
acknowledge, like, I'm just going to go deeper. Like, Dante's got nothing on my inferno. Like, I'll find another layer. You've been to 2 Olympics. You've come from this amazing journey from club rowing to masters rowing to this moment where you've now raced in 2 Olympics. And we've learned not to be presumptuous about the journey, but I would love to know, like, do you have a favorite race? Do you have a favorite erg test? Do you have a favorite workout that you could take us into, like, where you felt Olympic, right? Where it was like, do you have a clear moment in this journey of yours where you're like, man, I'm doing it. I am being Olympic. And if you can remember that,
yeah.
can you take us through what that workout or that race or that piece was?
Yeah. Well, a race that always stands out to me, that I loved racing, was I think it was 99 after the World Championships, there were a group of mostly scullers, I think, who went to Australia for the Pacific Rim. I don't know. I forget what it was called, but it was kind of like a test regatta the year before the Olympics. And we broke the quad into two doubles, and Kelly and I raced the double against Jen and Laurel, and there was a lightweight double. I think it was Sarah Garner, and now I'm forgetting who Sarah rode with, but um we made the final and we came in second, which is a spoiler alert, but we battled with the Russian double the entire way down the course. It was literally like we would take a stroke and surge ahead. They took a stroke, surge ahead. We took a stroke, surge ahead. And it was I was so proud of our effort. I was so happy with that race, maturity, I guess. Um, and it literally we came in second by point whatever, because of the surge. What stroke the crew crossed the line at, and we came in second. But we beat Jen and Laurel, who, our they had been our teammates, but they're still Jen and Laurel, right? I mean, they're Olympians and really good rowers, and I at this point I wasn't an Olympian yet, but because this is 99, and we beat the lightweight double that was very fast. And that's a moment for me that I was like, wow, I just beat some legit rowers and battled with another country, and so that, I think that race was, and it's on video. My parents sometimes watch it and they're like, we keep thinking this time we watch, you're gonna win. It was so close, but yeah, that race right there is extremely memorable, and one that I don't always remember, every stroke of the of races, because I'm, partly blacked out for part of it, but but that race, it was like, wow, I was looking over, I was bow seat, so I was making the calls, and it was really awesome. And
What?
and I love rowing with Kelly.
Well, and I think you brought up a really amazing, because we're starting to get some people outside of rowing that are really curious about this, and it's most of us don't remember our races because of the intensity that it takes just to stay that present in that much discomfort.
Yeah.
And Justin, you can speak for the coxswain's roles. Like, you're in it too, right? Because you have so many factors going on to like make sure that you're 'cause to do well in a rowing race, you do have to be incredibly present. But that's why I think those like really epic moments that the time dilates for you, and you have a clear memory. It was very special for us, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate that you share, like, because I can feel myself being in that boat with you, like with the Russians, and seeing like Laurel and Jen and saying, "Damn, they're really good," and like, "Whoa, we're ahead." And all of a
Yeah.
sudden, I don't know if you had it, but it sounds to me like you had this revelation of like, this is my opportunity to prove I'm good. And I'm just curious, as like, were you proven to yourself you were good? Were you proven to Kelly that you were good? Was it like you're trying to, or none of that? Just like you're just enjoying being good in that moment.
Yeah, I think a little bit of all of the above. I mean, uh, it I think, yeah, a little bit of all of the above, because I didn't know that I could be good, and and Kelly, rowing with Kelly and kind of proving to her that I could be good is also relevant, because this is another little tidbit that I didn't share, but my first sort of selection experience in Augusta, I think there were 13, 11 or some odd number of scullers, and we were doing seat racing, and I was number 11 or number 13 or whatever it was. Every single double I got in, I lost. And, people were like, oh, people thought it was the boat. Because I stayed in the boat and people switched into my boat, and they're like, oh, this boat. And I'm like, no, it's not. In my head, I'm like, that's so nice of you to say, but I think it's me. And Kelly was
Oh
one of the people I
God,
rode
that's
with.
so hard.
Yeah, and you know,
That's
and
so hard.
I was it was 90, what was it? 97, summer of 97, I think. Um or 98, I forget. And you know, so I was cut. I was cut. And and at that time, and Kelly was one of the people I rode with, and you know, she was a beast. She had been on the team, and she was super fit, and you know, great competitor. And I felt awful. Like I felt like I let all these people down in that, you know, camp environment, selection camp environment. And so then, yeah, fast forward a couple years to be rowing with Kelly and to be doing well. And it was like, it was a bit of a like proving to her that I was good, and also proving to myself, and sort of a little bit of a redemption. And just to say to others, you know, onlookers, coaches, teammates, whatever, like, oh, okay, so it's not just an erg score. Even though I did not, you know, I said I didn't really feel like I was rowing very well up until, you know, later than that. It was a bit of a all of the above, like proving to myself, proving to Kelly, proving to coaches, proving to everybody, not really proving, but just sort of showcasing that I could do it. That was a good race for me, a big moment, I guess.
Yeah. And that, to me, that's incredible. And I really appreciate you diving deep with me to articulate that, because I want to show people that listen to this how visceral this experience really is. Is like, there is so many factors that go into making it. There's so many factors that go into, you know, from fate to perseverance to opportunity, but to also like know that there's all of these reasons that are in the boat with you, and when it clicks, it is it's magical. And I think you really just did an amazing job of showing us that magical moment for you, of like feeling that you deserve to be among the world's best, because that is something that not everybody, like, yes, the guests on this show get to experience that someday on the 365-day calendar of the year. All of us had the potential to win the Olympics. And then, like, Steve has a great quote, is like, you can only lose the Olympics if you're good enough to win it. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And man, thank you for taking us to that moment where like you were world class. It's really, it was I feel blown away by it. So thank you. It was really cool. Really cool. Like, to see your expression on your face explaining to yourself many years later of like, yeah, I fucking did it today.
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
work so hard. You work so hard
Yeah.
for that moment. You
Yeah.
work so hard for
Yeah.
that moment to like just feel good about it and be like, I'm here. I'm here.
Right.
Let's keep going.
So after Athens, right? You've been in it for a while now, and there comes this moment, right, where um you're getting set to return to the real world, right? But you still end up keeping a foot in this world that we've been talking about for a while, right? Like you go into coaching. um you know, I think talk a little bit about just the decision to do that versus go back to Portland, or yeah, like how'd you get sucked into like the whole coaching world?
Well, that's a great question. I I applied for the Cornell novice women's coach position in the summer leading up to 2004. That's the only coaching job I applied for. My plan was to either get the job and move to Ithaca, or move back to Portland, move back to the North, you know, Pacific Northwest. Got the job.
Hey, is that nanny job? Is that nanny job back open?
Yeah, I know, right? Hey, sorry I left you in the lurch, but I'm
Do you
back.
have any more kids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, fun fact, I did actually meet up with that family, and they're awesome, and they forgave me, and they moved to England, and I went over and visited them. It was anyway, so no hard feelings. But anyway, so I again, with the sort of not really having a firm concrete plan of I'm going to go into the coaching world or I'm going to take this other direction. It was like, I'm going to apply for this job. If I get it, that's awesome. And if I don't, I'm just going to move back to the Pacific Northwest. And I'm pretty sure I would have gotten in my car, driven cross country with no plan. Just that's how I roll. But I got the job at Cornell, and that back up a little bit. I did coach. My first coaching job was at Lewis and Clark College, another club program in Portland, Oregon, when I lived there. And I did that for 2 years. And then I was hired as the Georgetown novice women's coach between 2000 and 2004. I did that for 3 years. So it wasn't like the Cornell job was my first coaching job, but when I knew I was done with rowing, competitive elite rowing, which I did know that after Athens, mostly because I felt it was time. Whether I had another 4 years in me or not, I kind of just knew. Coaching was not necessarily the path I knew I was going to take. It was more of the let's see where this goes approach, and
that's
fit.
hard. Like
Yeah.
that's a really hard. You're glossing over it because you're resilient and you're tough, but that is an interesting moment in the athlete's career when you're like, oh, I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is tough. It is a transition that everybody goes through and goes through differently. And of course, I think any retared elite athlete who says they don't have thoughts of what if, I think are probably, I don't know, fooling themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, what if? And you do a workout and you're like, I still got it. And
Jordan has this great scene in the Last Dance documentary where he goes like, I just wish we'd have kept us together to go for 7. Like this is Michael Jordan many years later doing a documentary on how great, and it's still on that day is like, so yeah, we all have the affliction of one more.
Yeah.
So but I felt the weight there, and it's like it's real, right? Even many years later, it's that moment of like, I'm done is hard. So
I think that
thank you for sharing.
What's I think hard for me, honestly, is I do feel like I still row and I erg and whatever, but I still have that feeling that I just learned more about rowing well after I was done rowing, after I was done, elite level rowing. So that is, and I'm not trying to say that I row perfectly, but my just understanding of how to row well continued to develop after I was done. So that's kind of hard to just say, oh, well, if I could have applied this earlier, or, if I had rowed after college and not taken those 6 years or 4 years of off, maybe I could have gone for another Olympics or wanted to go for another, but obviously it is what it is. And I wouldn't, I think, I don't know. It is the reality. It is a reality of just developing awareness, and maybe gold medalists say that too. I was continuing to learn more, so I don't really know how everybody else feels, but I do know that I wish I could have applied that understanding and technical proficiency to when I was actually a proficient, athletically.
Well, it's like you're a lifelong student of the sport, right? And so like a lot of the stories that you've told have been around improvement and mastery of the sport as opposed to the performance aspects, or
Right.
Let me tell you the story about making the team, or this story about going to the Olympics. It's let me tell you about when I figured out the technical side of rowing. And when you were saying in, I think it was 2002, you'd already been to the Olympics, and that's when you felt like, oh, I belong because I row better now. When you already belonged. But like it's fascinating because we always talk about high improvement behavior here. And so to do what you did requires amazing high performance, and you performed in all these different things. But it seems like you value, in a lot of the same ways, the things that we've talked about that we value is the improvement aspect, and that you are determining for yourself what's good or what's not good.
Right.
And even, so someone listening could be like, well, you went to the Olympics. You're like, yeah, but I was
Right.
still trying to figure out how to row. And they're like, what are you
Right.
talking about?
I
Like,
know, I know.
what are you talking about?
It sounds
but
so
that's,
like disingenuous to say I wasn't
no,
a
no, no,
very good
no.
rower, but I went to the Olympics. I sometimes feel that way, like talking to people who haven't been to the Olympics, to say I wasn't a very good rower in the 2000, as an Olympian, it does sound a little weird, but I think you're absolutely right. Like I didn't feel like I was the best version of a rower I could be.
But that's the
clutch.
agreement. That's the point that
That's
we're
clutch.
making.
Yeah.
And what we
Yeah.
totally agree with is that because you're wired that way, that's why you went
Right.
to the Olympics. That's why it happened, because it was always a work in progress, because it was, I personally am feeling better about the way that I'm rowing in 2002. Like, it's those sorts of traits and qualities that we're seeing in these conversations that we're having, that we're starting to realize are real determining factors for people being able to do things. And your story, I mean, took a lot of crazy turns, right? From Dan, as you were explaining it, it was like, yeah, you rowed club in college, then you were a masters rower, and then you went from masters to the Olympics. That's probably the first story that we've ever
Yeah.
heard of, like, oh, a
First time we've
masters
ever
rower
heard that.
decided to become an Olympian. Like,
Yeah.
it's just,
Yeah.
and there's South America, and there's this,
It's
and
not,
there's that.
it's not
So
linear. It's not linear.
it's not linear at
No.
all, but it's absolutely fascinating, how, like you described, rowing got its hooks into you, and then it was just about continuing to improve for as long as you were doing it. And you're even frustrated now because you're like, and then I hung up the oar and I found myself improving even more and rowing
Yeah.
even better. And so it's really cool to see that, because you're stuck in it. You're a lifelong student of the sport.
Yeah.
Well, you personify, if you want to be great at something, you have to admit you're not good first.
Yep.
And I think that the way you describe that, really, again, that is a living of that quote of, like, you wanted to be great, so you were like, it's okay, I'm not good. And
Yeah.
the cool sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, because I never, like, I didn't come from that D1, I didn't win NCAAs or, anything like that. It was like, I kind of wasn't good.
Relatively. You were pretty good.
Reality
You
is
were
I
pretty good.
wasn't
Yeah,
good.
yeah. Well, but here, so really, I mean, with that, luckily for rowing, your high improving mindset and your willingness. I think the other through line is there's a willingness to try. Like, you do get into coaching, and you have this really amazing coaching career. And I think that it's this breadth of experience, scratching that competitive itch, teaching that competitive itch. Did you feel that when you got into coaching, did you develop, maybe you had this previously, like, but did you, who was your nemesis, or, like, who did you think you were playing the villain of their story? Like, who was going after you and who were you going after? Where if you won, you were the hero, but then you also ruined someone's day. So I love this. I love the saying that Luke and I have is, like, to be really an Olympian or high competitor, you got to be your best friend's villain one day, and then get him to
Yeah.
hug you after. So who
Well,
are you the villain in someone's story in all this, from coaching to racing, etc.?
I mean, with rowing, honestly, I can think of more, in this context, I can think of more coaching related
Yep.
nemesis, or, being at Cornell. And Steve, you can obviously relate to coaching at Cornell in the Ivy League. It's the Princeton, Yale, when we beat Harvard, or sorry, not Harvard, when we beat Yale for the first time, oh my gosh, that felt quite good. And I like Will Porter. I'm not saying anything negative about Will Porter, but when we beat beat Yale, that was a highlight of my life.
Yeah,
And
it's good.
you
That's
know,
so yeah, as it should. That's an awesome win.
because it had really never. I mean, it had never been done when I was
It's
there,
hard.
and
It's hard.
you know,
I'm going to be
and
chasing that for a while.
yeah, and we went from my first year as a head coach at Cornell, we lost every single race, not just by like a bow ball or, half a boat, like we lost by 20, 30 seconds. And my pre-race, pump up speeches was like something to the tune of, let's see if we can lose by less than 20 seconds. Like, come on. It was like
Thanks.
a slog fest, and it was so hard, and just like it was so hard. And so to then a few years later to actually beat a team that had beat us by like 35 seconds a few years earlier, it was just like I get chills. I get really emotional thinking about it, because it was, and again, not no disrespect to Yale at all. Obviously, they're quite fast and good, but it was a very big moment for me, for Cornell, and I'm really proud of that team and of that effort. And so I think in terms of like a nemesis, you know, uh, story or whatever, I would say it was me and the powerhouse Ivy League coaches. To be honest, that was like a David versus Goliath kind of situation, that underdog, that I always kind of felt. And it's really tough, as you know, Steve. It's really tough to coach in the Ivy League. It's just it's a competitive environment. And so anyway, yeah, I would say the nemesis was more, not nemesis, I mean, that's your word, not mine. Was
Yes,
more with
it's to be fun. It's fun.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
dramatic.
yeah,
It's
yeah, it
dramatic.
is dramatic. It's with the just like the coaches.
That
And on some level, it's like, you don't have as much control when you're coaching. You have less control when you're coaching than, when you're actually out there rowing. So it's a little bit, um, sort of a strange nemesis type situation. But yeah, I would say that would be my story.
Yeah, it's this weird, like I tell people, I gotta inject myself in this a little bit. Like I tell people rowing is the only sport where, as the coach, you look at your athletes and you say, good luck, I'll see you in 45 minutes. Tell me how it goes.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so you're like, and then you're looking
So
across
true.
at the cross at the other coach and being like, we get to see if I prepared them better than you, or
Right.
let's see. But it's all them. And so
Yep.
yeah, it's weird like that.
Yep. No strategic plays that you're going to call, no timeouts. It's just
Nope.
good luck and let me know how it goes.
Yeah, it's no, but
Yeah.
it's a beauty. I think that's coaching at its purest. Where you're making your athletes autonomous, like you're teaching them how to be autonomous. And I think that's why rowing is such a really unique sport that we're excited to share. And so I have two more questions for you. I'm done almost torturing you, putting you through a heart rate workout. So as a coach, and that is a beautiful turnaround, true like underdog story. And I love Will. I hope he's listening. Like, it's great to hear that you ruined his day. Because we all need that. And can you distill it? And I know this is nearly impossible, but taking that turnaround, can you distill it down to like one thing of many, right? And I know even that one thing would be layered, but what do you think as a coach you did to help change the momentum of that?
I mean, if I'm being perfectly honest, it was the ability to, um, I guess, inspire walk-ons, because that group that was part of the change were walk-ons. But I will say you don't just suddenly make it happen in 1 year. So I would say if I'm trying to answer your question succinctly, I would say it was probably, and the rowers would be able to answer this way better, but the ability to inspire people to want to go through their own process of becoming the best version of themselves. So it wasn't necessarily like recruiting or a workout or anything like that. It was more just if if we're going to get better as a team, we need to all of us get better. So it was just an ability, I guess, to inspire people to want to be better. And then what does that take to get better? It probably means a little more, all of the things, time in the erg room and doing extra workouts and accountability and all of those things. But it was a combination of that and a pretty there's always a little bit of luck in there, a lucky group of walk-ons that, that included Tracy Iser, Taylor Getzinger, people who went on to be national team and Olympians, who were walk-ons. And that was pretty awesome to have that group. But not every walk-on turns into a fast rower. But I think, I had the ability to keep the walk-ons, because you don't always keep the walk-ons, because if they aren't inspired, they're not going to stay. So,
Sure.
I don't know. I think a little bit of luck, a little bit of ability to just inspire, and some classes before that who were really, really dedicated to the plan. The plan of turning the program around. So I do credit the year or 2 years prior to that win against Yale as, putting in the work and the effort to get there. And I think kind of like the person who doesn't make the Olympic team or the spare, they're putting in the work, as much work as the people who make the team, but they're not getting as much of the limelight. It's the years before you have that breakthrough performance or breakthrough success that are almost more important than the breakthrough year, because they're the backbone, and so again, long-winded answer to
No, but this is why we
Yeah.
this is why we do it this way, is that
It-
we need the wind. We need the wind. And I think that I really love that you do almost what's the most important part of the Olympian's journey is the lessons that you learn to teach yourself, like being willing, enjoying the process, wanting to constantly improve and be inspired. You were able to teach that to next generation. And we're gonna have those people on the show, hopefully, that you did coach and became Olympians. And I think it's really a powerful message that you've articulated today with us, which is I did this for me, and I want to take that skill and I do want to do it for others now. And I think it's a great way to kind of give you our last question. Is so if you could go back in time and coach yourself, when would it be, and what would it say? What would you say to yourself?
Well, I would definitely tell myself at any stage of my athletic career, starting from high school, to stretch more. I never stretched, and that is the worst. Stretch more. Freaking stretch more. I mean, are you kidding me? Maybe I could, move my hips a little more now, but yeah, I mean, I think honestly, just don't. I mean, my go-to, as I said before, was pull hard. Just go hard, work hard, work hard, work hard. But did I do a pre-warm up? Did I do a post workout stretch? Like, no, I was just like bull in a china shop, just do the work. And I think if I could have just been a little bit more well-rounded, I guess, as as an athlete, I think that would have. I mean, I never, like I said earlier, I didn't really ever get injured. Nothing major. Like there was no, major, in my opinion, in my immature opinion. I never had a reason, right? Like only people who got injured need to do all this. That's such crap. I wish I had been a little bit more well-rounded for in that way. And honestly, that goes back to high school through literally almost the entire time I was on the national team. Yeah, so just stretch.
Stretch. Hillary. What an awesome, what an awesome journey. I mean, these shows go by super fast, and I can't believe like almost 2 hours have flown by.
I know. I gotta go
And
to bed, you guys.
We're good. I guess I told you one more, and I just
We're
want
not
to
going to
say
stretch this out anymore.
yeah, we're not going to stretch
Good
this.
one.
Like
Good
Justin,
one.
well done,
Yeah.
well done.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm here for.
Thank you so much for coming on. I mean, it's amazing. Like it's been super amazing to have an Olympic couple on this show. Like, I want to get you both on together at some point and talk about
Oh,
what
boy.
that's like. The intensity that you have probably in that house, and you have your two sons, and what that's like. But I just want to say thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, with the audience, and
Yeah.
like really supporting the Metal Factory and the Fast Friends show. It was a pleasure to have you on, and you are always welcome.
Awesome. Well, this has been super fun. And
you.
again, yeah, thank you for inviting me. I can't believe I can because I'm a talker, but
Yeah.
can't believe it's 10:42. It's time for
Good
time
job.
for literally time for me to go to bed. And my everything about my computer right now is about to explode. Like
Perfect.
Well,
Yeah,
maybe-
so this is a good time.
You went to the well.
Went to
You
the
went to
well.
the well.
I
and
did.
broke
I
it all
went to
down,
the
yeah.
well. Yes,
Yes.
I
Hillary
absolutely did.
Gehman, thank you. You are a fast friend, and
Yeah.
we love you.
That's all for today's show. Fast Friends is a Metal Factory production. All opinions expressed are our own and those of our guests. If you like our show, follow along or subscribe with us wherever you get your content and podcasts. Thanks for listening.